Well, Razorback fans, we got to dive into something that's football related, of course. We'll talk baseball, but the position that Arkansas needs to be elite at this upcoming season, besides quarterback, what is it? We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday as we made it to the weekend. And I know it's an exciting time, especially with Razorback Baseball getting all tuned up and talking about their win against Vanderbilt, which we will here in just a second. But, you know, one of the football things that I got brought to my attention yesterday, and you guys keep coming in with some great questions, which I love. And yes, once you open up the floodgates for one person asking a question, they want to know more. And they want to have more input on what gets talked about or what they can discuss. And so I'm all for it, though, and I appreciate it. And one of the things that was put forth by a listener, his name was Matthew, and it's a different Matthew, actually, this time around. So, but it was about the position and which position for the Razorback football team is going to be the most crucial position for this season besides quarterback. And I like how he put in besides quarterback, because I think that that's the most important thing that you have to remember, that what we all have to remember is that we don't want to talk about just the quarterback, because of course the quarterback's the most crucial position. It is for every single football team. Very seldom do you see teams win championships without having elite quarterback play or at least great quarterback play. Even, yes, that's correct. Even Stetson Bennett, past 2 championships for Georgia. Was he a Heisman Trophy winner? No, but he was still good. You know, it didn't hinder them from winning a championship. He was not a bad quarterback. He was still pretty solid. But we know that that's the way it is in the NFL and the way it is in college football, that if you have an elite quarterback, you're going to go far. If you don't have good quarterback play, you're not going to be very good. Simple as that. So besides the position of quarterback, though, what is it? Where is it? How is it? What does it need to be looked at? And how do we view it at this point in time when it comes to what the most important position it is? And to me, you could go a lot of different directions with this. And what makes it so fascinating, why I wanted to bring it up, is because I think everyone's going to have their own different opinion by it. Some may say wide receiver. Some may say the secondary, a safety position, whatever it may be. But I'm going to go a little bit different this time around, all right? I'm going to go a different direction here. Now, I'm not saying that these other positions aren't important, because, again, I'll hear arguments for all of them. But you know what, to me, is the most crucial position for Arkansas this season? The one that can make or break their entire year, or at least take them from being just a good team, average team, to being a great team? To me, it's the tight end position. Now, it's something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. And, of course, defense is important. And, of course, skill position players are important. The offensive line play is important. All of that's very important. But I've always felt like the one thing Arkansas has been lacking for so long has been gifted tight ends. Now, it looks like, at least with the transfer portal of getting Gums in here, as well as the high-quality tight ends that Sam Pittman has recruited to bring in, and knowing Dan Enos, as an offensive coordinator, really likes to utilize tight ends, it's going to be more of a feature this year. I think we all can agree with that. We all can say that, hey, it's what it's going to look like, and it's going to be pretty good. But it's about what's going to take it to that next level. What's going to be the difference in this year's tight ends compared to what we've seen in previous years, and how much of a difference can they actually make? Well, to me, I've always felt like if you're a tight end and you have the gift of being extremely good at the 2 most important things on the field as an offensive player, then you're going to go far into the NFL. You're going to have a great career. And, you see guys like, Travis Kelce and people like that who make such a difference on their team when they're just big, able-bodied freak athletes that can do so many different things to where nobody really has anyone else on the other side of the ball to do anything about it. Because when you have wide receivers line up, sure, you can have size, you can have Traylon Burks, you can have guys like that. But if you have a 6'3" to 6'6" wide receiver that's out there, well, they're going to be going up against, in a lot of cases, a 6 foot or taller cornerback, 6'2", 6'3" sometimes. And a lot of those wide receivers may not just be built. Again, there's exceptions to the rules, but a lot of them may be about the same weight or at least close to it. A lot of them may not have the over-the-top ability. The athleticism may be very comparable. And then same thing with the safety position too. There could be big, able-bodied safeties that could body up a wide receiver. And then even with running backs, you can have some really gifted running backs, but even if you have someone that's 6'2", 230 pounds, so say a big, able-sized running back, well, guess what? They're going to be running into linebackers that are going to be 6'2", 6'3", 230, 250 pounds. That'll be able to meet your match there. So to me, it's about the matchups and what kind of problems you can have. But tight end, you suddenly put yourself in a position to where you're going to have a player who can go out and not only block really well and block edge rushers and everything, but go out for passes and in the middle of the field and make a lot of plays, where the only players that, again, usually are able and capable of going up against them and matching against them with their size and their skill set and athleticism or whatever are defensive ends. Like, there's a lot of similarities between them because a lot of these tight ends, they're 6'5", 6'6", they're 250 pounds. But on top of that, they also have speed. They have strength. They have a high IQ. And they are able to outmatch so many of the other guys on the defensive side of the ball. Arkansas has been missing that. And think about the run that they had of so many great tight ends and the difference that it made in those offenses. You think back to the Petrino offenses. Everyone talks about the wide receivers. And yes, a lot of credit and where credit is due to how great those wide receivers were. But it also helped when you had DJ Williams and Chris Gregg. Two dudes that were bona fide, all SEC caliber type of tight ends. And both played in the NFL, and Chris Gregg actually had quite a long run in the NFL as a tight end. And then even after that, during Burt's years, you had Hunter Henry. I mean, need I say more? We know how incredible that guy was. AJ Derby, who converted over to tight end. Big impact. Jeremy Sprinkle, another one. Huge impact player. Even a guy that really struggled to get out of his own way, but a really gifted player, Cheyenne O'Grady, CJ O'Grady, whatever you want to call him. He had the skill sets, and he was a problem. And on offense, when you have all these different weapons, and whether it's great wide receivers or running backs or even the quarterbacks or offensive lines and everything, having a dynamic player that is an elite tight end can make all the difference on your team, because even when they have your guys guarded extremely well on the outside, even when they're stuffing the run against you, they're aiming, they're lining up, and they're making you earn every single inch that you get past the line of scrimmage in the rushing attack. Even with all that's going on, the tight end position is the one that, hey, if we're having problems in pass protection, come back and help us out. Makes the difference. Hey, we're having problems with guys getting open on the outside. That's okay. Go out and we'll try to find you the ball in the middle of the field and really close in those gaps. Oh, you're somebody that we could do screen passes with, and then once you get the ball in your hands, you're a tough dude to bring down. Okay, here you go. Go make a play. Let's see what you got. It's the tight end position. And again, like some of you will say DN, some of you will say linebackers, and that's fine. Like, that's what's great about this question is we can all have our opinions. But I believe that if Arkansas is able to have an elite tight end, and whether it's Gums or Hogs or any of the guys that they've brought in this year, if any of those guys can step up and be like all SEC caliber, big time, all SEC caliber tight ends, the offense is going to take so many significant steps forward, it's not even going to be funny. Because I believe Dan Enos understands the value of a tight end. And that was one thing about Kendall Briles I don't think he really understood or really utilized enough, is having great tight ends and great tight end position and recruiting to that level. And I believe with the new coaches that have been brought in and the new style and philosophy, it's something that's going to be utilized once again. So I think that's going to be a huge factor. So that's why I can't wait for a lot of different reasons for the football team. But knowing that the crucial position of the tight end position, and like just knowing that it could be the difference for this team. I can't wait to see how it plays out. I can't wait to see what Enos does and how he does it differently. He'll still value wide receivers, and they'll still throw it out of the backfield. Like they'll still have a lot of elements to other skill position guys, but if they can just get the tight end and get the tight end going, we're going to be in great shape as a team and as a podcast, because it'll be a lot of fun to talk about this year too. We'll talk about some of the baseball side of things as Arkansas is able to take game one here in just a second. But folks, I got to tell you about Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. You know why? Because they offer the best, and I mean the best, shorts that you will ever buy. It's incredible. And sometimes when you go out and about, whether it's golfing or whether you're just going out in the town or going to a darty, which is a day party for those of you who don't know, you kind of like, okay, so what can I wear? Because I want to be comfortable, but I don't want to, go too dressy, whatever it may be. Birddogs are great for that because they are perfectly fitting and perfectly comfortable, and they're perfectly stylish. They're the best of all three worlds. So you're wondering, how is that possible? Take it from me. I have a few pairs here, and I've been wearing them all over the place. If it's something I just want to lounge around and watch the Razorback baseball game in, I'm going to wear them. Or if I want to go out and hit some golf balls, I'll wear them. Go to work, I'll wear them. Go to a party, I'll wear them. I'll wear them anywhere because it's that type of clothing. And if you don't believe me, check them out yourself. Just go over to birddogs.com, LockedOnCollege, and be sure to enter in promo code LockedOnCollege, all one word, and you'll be able to get one of their really cool Birddogs Yeti-style tumblers for free. That's right, for free. So just check them out, again, at birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Razorback Baseball taking care of business in game one, and they are officially 20-8 in SEC play after winning their first game against Vanderbilt, and they did it in very convincing fashion. Arkansas was able to take care of business. 8-2 was the final score. And honestly, from the get-go, you could just tell it's going to be Arkansas's night. They started the first inning 4-0. They got guys on base, and then Hagen Smith mowed a bunch of dudes down, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful game. Now, granted, Vanderbilt helped out a lot because they had, I think, 3 errors in this game and a lot of other mistakes. Wild pitches, they looked like crap. So, like some people are going to be like, oh, well, it was a good win, but Vanderbilt gave it to you. Hey, you took advantage of it. And when you take advantage of it, you win games. It's all that matters in the end. Arkansas is now 39-13. To mention 20-8 in SEC play. LSU also won tonight. So it's still like Georgia almost won, which would have been nice. But if Arkansas can just win the next 2 games, if they sweep Vanderbilt, I believe they'll at least have a share of the SEC title. It's kind of confusing because LSU threw everything off not having that one game against South Carolina, so they've played one less game in the SEC. But if I'm not mistaken, if LSU loses one game, if they lose tomorrow against Georgia and Arkansas beats Vanderbilt, they'll be at least assured a share of the title. It's confusing. Yeah, hopefully we'll know a little bit more of that. But either way, they took care of business in a game one, and they did it in very convincing fashion. Brady Slavin's just been on a wrecking crew. He had a 2-run home run in this one. Hit it 400 feet. It's not too bad. And then also Josenberger was, he was getting involved. It was good to see Wagner back in there too. He got hit by a pitch in his very first at bat back. Goes up to the plate and just gets rocked in like what was close to the head there in the very first pitch. I'm like, well, welcome back. But Kendall Diggs did his thing. Caleb Cowley did his thing. Honestly, and I keep talking about Caleb Cowley. To me, I know that there's a lot of great players that you can talk about on this team and hitting and everything, and or defense or pitching. Every time Caleb Cowley is at the plate, like I believe he's going to get a hit, get walked, or at least make contact. Like I just don't think he's not going to strike out. Like he's just sees the ball so well, and he's very patient. And so he's definitely been one of the guys that I've been really impressed by. And also shout out to Peyton Holt, who had to step up and has stepped up instead of Peyton Stovall since he's been out. Peyton Holt had some incredible web gems out there at second base. Like he had 2 plays I couldn't even believe. And I wish I could play the clip of Dave Van Horn. They had him on the headset during one of the plays. And Dave just like sits there. He's like, see that? You see that? Are you kidding me? That's my backup. You know, almost like that's our backup player out there making plays. But it's true. It's like he stepped up and, you know, not only did he have an incredible game in the field, but he also went 3 of 4 and scored on a wild pitch there by Vanderbilt. And so I said he was definitely great. But Hagen Smith came in. He went for 5 innings. And then Big Mac, Will McIntyre came in and looked really good too. He had 1 hit, struck out 6 during 52 pitches. Hagen Smith allowed 2 runs, 5 hits, and 2 walks, but struck out 7 in his 84 pitches. And 57 of his pitches he threw for strikes. So that was awesome too. But they just take care of business. Arkansas is now 9-1 in their last 10 SEC games. Seems pretty good to me. Seems pretty good. And Vanderbilt's now lost their 4th consecutive game. So let's just be honest about this too, because I know we've talked baseball and for a while now, but Arkansas has secured a national seat. It's done, confirmed. Lock it in. If Arkansas is going to Omaha this year, it runs through Fayetteville. The road runs through Fayetteville for the regionals and super regionals if they go to Omaha this year. So that's awesome. And they're still number 2 in the country. And if they win this series against Vanderbilt, they'll stay number 2. And I don't want them to be number 1. I do not want that. I want them to stay at number 2 or less. Do not be number 1. Wake Forest, you can have it. You can have that number 1 ranking. So that's what they're going to be putting in for Arkansas, and they secured that spot, which is huge. I mean, home field advantage is awesome, and you know with Baum Walker how awesome it is to be there during that time and how much fun it's going to be. And so even though they locked it up, like I said before, I hope they go to the SEC tournament and just 0-2 barbecue, get out, get everybody healthy. Because I guess today when you're listening to the podcast, I assume they'll probably go with Tigert as the starter again, see how long he can go. And since Will McIntyre already went, and then after that, maybe go with Adcock, maybe throw in Zach Morris in there too. Don't really know, at least at the point in time of the recording of this podcast, who's going to go. But I would think that Brady Tigert at least makes an appearance in some form or fashion. So if they get it done tomorrow, they said they've wrapped up essentially they could be the SEC champion, regular season champion, and they have all wrapped up that national seed. So get ready, folks. Get ready for that regional in Fayetteville. It's going to be pretty lit. And so I'm looking forward to that, and it's going to be exciting. But this baseball team, I think that they continue to improve and continue to show greatness. But if Dave Van Horn doesn't win SEC Coach of the Year, then something has gone terribly, horribly, indubitably wrong. Like, fire somebody. Somebody needs to go. Somebody at the SEC offices needs to go if he's not the Coach of the Year in the SEC. And the voting on the National Coach of the Year, fire them too. Because something went awry. Something was really bad. And they need to fix that. And they need to change that right now. So I'll do a little NIL update because I think it's really fascinating. And people always seem to be wanting to talk about the NIL with Arkansas. So we'll get to that on the other side of the break. Stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I mentioned that I was at the Little Rock One Razorback Roadshow, I think is what that was called. And I alluded to a little bit of it because we got to see Sam Pittman, got to talk with Sam Pittman for a little bit and his wife Jamie, and they're just awesome people. And I got to see some other Hog fans and everything, and a lot of people that listen to the podcast, which was really cool. And I appreciate everybody coming up and saying hey to me and everything. That was awesome. But you know, one thing that I still want to relay to everybody, because I brought this up on my radio show and people said, okay, so what, I need numbers. I need to know about Arkansas's NIL and what we're doing here and how's it going. Well, let me put it to you this way. If you look at Arkansas's recruiting classes and transfer classes in the major sports, and when I say major sports, we're just going to look at football and basketball because baseball's been elite no matter what. And softball's up their game too, but you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I know about recruiting rankings in softball, but I do know that they've been high and Courtney Deifel's been a good job. But let's just look at the two big ones, the two big daddies, football and men's basketball. Since NIL has started, what have you done in the recruiting classes? Basketball, you had top 5 classes every year. You signed McDonald's All-Americans. the most you've ever had. You're about to have players drafted into the NBA. And on top of all of that, you also had incredible transfer classes every single year. Some graded out as one of the best, maybe number 1, 2, or 3, but it's been electric. And the best thing about the recruit or the transfer classes you brought in is they were pretty quick. Like as soon as the portal opened up and those guys jumped in, those guys committed to Arkansas very quick. You know, put it all together. Then the football on the other side. It started off where you start getting a lot of big time transfers. You did. And in the recruiting classes, you know, at least for the 2 years ago or this past year, however you want to look at it. But it was still pretty high, top 20 class. But because of the amount of competition there is in NIL across the board when it comes to college football, it's always going to be pretty hard to break into it. But now look at the upcoming high school class. You have, as of right now, lots of time. But right now, you're a top 15 recruiting class. And there's a chance, if things go your way and you start really getting after it with Pittman and the staff, you could be busting into having a top 10 class, or at least flirting with it. That's a fact. Takes a lot. Lots can change, but you could. And then in the transfer class for Arkansas, at least for this offseason, you have one of the top ones in the country, depending on who you look at. But some people will have you as number 2, number 3, or maybe even number 4, but a top 5 transfer class coming in this year. Now, why is that? Of course, it has a lot to do with coaching and recruiting and relationships and all of that. But folks, the word is out among all high school players and transfers that Arkansas takes care of their players. They do a really good job with it. The word's out. So when they get a call from Arkansas, it's no longer, and looking at it as, okay, well, you know, that's fine, but we'll see if I get any calls from anybody else. It's getting one of those things where, hey, if Arkansas is on the phone, you pick it up and you find out. And you see, all right, what's going on? How can I fit into the team? All of that. But also, the NIL, they know it's well established at Arkansas. And it's across the board. That's one of the best recruiting tools that you can have, where you don't even have to say anything. Kids know. Players know. Like, players talk. Like, and I won't mention names because I can't, but I talked to a player, former player, should say, for Arkansas, and they told me that the NIL was so great at Arkansas and compared to other places that they started contacting guys that they went to high school with, or guys that they knew from that were younger players, or guys that were at, you know, just trying to, like, in the portal and maybe trying to find a new spot. And they're like, hey, come here, man. They take care of their own. Those guys are great. Like, he told me that. Nobody had to do any other recruiting. They're like, oh, man, okay, yeah, let's do that. It's big time. It's huge. So just keep that in mind, folks. And remember that. And if you ever get frustrated about how NIL is going, or maybe you think like it's not as good as what it should be, or at the place it should be, just remember that it's going really well for Arkansas, and it will continue to go really well for Arkansas. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you then.